what's up? Seniesa Estrada here, and I just want to give a huge special shout out to the relay. Thank you so much for all of the continuous support, and thank you for all of the support during and after and before every single fight.
Welcome to the motherfucking relay. We're covering today's top boxing news. Ow!
Okay, we'll start with this. Some unfortunate news. Kim Clavel of Canada posted this via her Instagram account. It reads, "It's with a broken heart that I write you these lines. Due to an injury, I have had to listen to my body and postpone my world championship to a later date. As an athlete, I have way too much ethics and professionalism to be in the ring less than 100% of my fitness and ability. After receiving a medical diagnosis, I'm discharged for 3 weeks. So these next few weeks will be time for self-care, rest, various treatments, and a gradual return to training. Because a healthy Kim is a hungry Kim. From the bottom of my heart, as big as the Bell Center, I want to thank you all for your love, support, and words of encouragement. See you soon with further details as things follow. I love you guys." And Kim, she was supposed to be challenging Yesenia Gomez for Yesenia's WBC title. Yesenia Gomez, who I think would have lost that title had she ended up fighting Kim later on this year. That's not going to happen. At least not later on this year. Perhaps early next year?
Maybe.
Yesenia Gomez is the WBC's light flyweight champion. Light flyweight, that's 108 pounds. She's the WBC's full champion at that weight. Kenya Enriquez of Mexico, like Yesenia, she's the WBC's interim champion. And if you can believe this, Kenya Enriquez has been the interim champion longer than Yesenia has been the full champion. That's right. Kenya Enriquez became the WBC's interim champion in 2017, whereas Yesenia, she didn't become the full champion till 2018, a year later. And after all this time, Yesenia Gomez hasn't given Kenya Enriquez a title shot. She hasn't attempted to unify with any of the other champions at this weight. Yesenia Gomez is very much holding that belt hostage.
4 years, Kenya don't get a title shot.
Have it on good authority that Yesenia Gomez's promoter, Pepe Gomez, he's in real good with the WBC. I spoke to this division's WBO champion at light flyweight from East LA, Seniesa Estrada, and she lended some very useful insights as to what the situation really is at 108 pounds.
Yeah, so I've been trying to get unification fights, and it's difficult because it's not only the fighters who don't want to take them, but it's the organizations that aren't doing their job by forcing the fights to happen and forcing the fighters to take these fights that are mandatory. Like Yesenia Gomez, I've been wanting to fight her for the past couple of years already, and the WBC seems to force all other fights to happen, but because it's all politics, at the end of the day. It sucks because WBC is friends with her promoter, and that's the truth, honestly. Being friends with the WBC, you have them on their side, and they're not forcing Yesenia to fight me. When I was the WBC silver champion, I should have been mandatory for Yesenia to fight next, but that still hasn't happened, and now I'm not the WBC silver belt champion anymore. Now Kim Clavel is, and they took that from me without even informing me or telling me anything, not even asking if I would like to, defend it or still fight for it, obviously, because they don't want me fighting Yesenia Gomez yet. So, which is great for Kim, good for her. That it just sucks that I could not get that unification fight with Yesenia Gomez. So
that's right. Some time ago, Seniesa Estrada was this division's WBC silver champion. WBC, they never ordered the fight between Seniesa and Yesenia. And since 2017, Kenya Enriquez has been the WBC's interim champion. Kenya's going to be in action south of the border later on today against Gabriela Saavedra.
It's going to be Kenya's first fight in a long time.
Kenya hasn't boxed since January last year, and that way, it's been close to 2 years since Kenya had a fight. Close to 2 years, just 1 or 2 months short of a 2-year stint of inactivity. Better still, throughout, Kenya has been the WBC's interim champion, but the WBC never once ordered Yesenia to fight her. The hope was that if Yesenia travels to Canada and defends her title against Kim Clavel, Kim who's now injured, that the title would change hands, and Kim would become this division's WBC champion, because I happen to think that Kim would fight the fights that Yesenia did not. Yesenia's promoter is real buddy-buddy with the WBC. But if the title were to change hands, and Kim Clavel were to become this division's WBC champion, I'm not sure that Canada's Yvonne Michel has the same relationship with Mauricio that Pepe Gomez does. Pepe Gomez, who promotes Yesenia Gomez. That being said, I think if Kim wins the belt, more of the fights that need to happen would happen because Kim's that kind of fighter and because Yvonne Michel perhaps doesn't have the relationship with Mauricio that Pepe does. The way I see it, Yesenia Gomez hasn't been taking risks the last couple of years, and I don't think she's going to start now. I think she's going to wait for Kim Clavel to heal up and perhaps take her on sometime next year. I think that Yesenia is more willing to take on Kim Clavel off an injury than a healthy Seniesa Estrada, a healthy Kenya Enriquez, and it's for that reason I expect that the fight will be rescheduled. I expect that they will get the fight over the line sometime next year. That's what I'm expecting.
Hey, Terence, I'm gonna be honest. I feel like Bob held you back. Between me and you, don't worry about nobody else listening. I feel like you missed out about $75 million, bro. I feel like my man held you back. I don't know how much you made, but it's time to go. Go get this money, Terence. And don't fight forever, bro, but go get this money.
Yeah, for sure, man. I feel like, there was a lot of opportunities left on the table. You know what I mean? Not only with fighters, but also with pay-per-view. You know what I mean? Like, for instance, me and Sean Porter fought on the app.
Right.
There were
Crazy.
so many people that was telling me they don't know how to get the app on the TV. They don't know how to do it. And, the average elderly or person that doesn't, know tech, they're not going to know how to get the app on the TV. So what they do, they don't buy it.
We've already covered the pay-per-view angle in my previous video, why it was that Crawford versus Porter as a pay-per-view underperformed. As we speak, there are numbers floating around out there in the boxing cosmos, anywhere between 130,000 buys to as high as 190. Kevin Iole initially reported that the pay-per-view did about 190,000 buys domestically, but Ring Magazine, they've got a different number. They've got their own number.
Neither one of those numbers is all that big.
I don't blame Terence Crawford for what is happening. I think that Terence Crawford has always wanted the big fights and still wants the big fights.
He does.
The issue here is actually a lot bigger than just Terence Crawford and today's welterweight division. However, when it comes to that subject, I noticed on the Porterweight podcast that one of the panelists, he blames Bob Arum for Crawford's situation. He thinks that Bob Arum was holding Terence Crawford back when it's Bob Arum and Top Rank that groomed Terence Crawford to become what he is, one of the best pound-for-pound fighters in the sport today.
It's a funny little stance that guy has.
Is it Bob Arum's fault that Danny Garcia never fought Terence Crawford? Is it Bob Arum's fault that Keith Thurman, Errol Spence Jr., is it Bob's fault those guys didn't fight Terence Crawford? Is it really?
They freeze him out, and you want to blame Bob for that?
You're not going to address how Errol Spence Jr. accused Terence Crawford of being on the wrong side of the street, huh? Even after Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder lock horns, Tyson Fury was on the same side of the street that Terence Crawford was on.
He fought Wilder 2 times while he was on that side of the street.
If you're going to talk about this subject, talk about the whole thing, why don't you? Talk about how Terence Crawford was frozen out by his own contemporaries due to which promotional outfit he was with. And you're saying that's Bob's fault?
Do you know how many high-caliber fighters Top Rank has produced?
I know that fighters like Oscar De La Hoya, Miguel Cotto, Manny Pacquiao, Floyd Mayweather Jr., now Terence Crawford, they all ended up leaving Top Rank.
Because many of them outgrew their promoter.
I mean, that's what it is. Those guys ended up going into business for themselves, and they made themselves a lot of money. It happens. Birds got to leave the nest at some point.
It's a circle of life is what it is.
But I don't know of any outfit in this sport, the sport of boxing, I don't know of any outfit that has groomed as many elite-level, top-shelf fighters as Top Rank. You're talking about Miguel Cotto, Oscar De La Hoya, Floyd Mayweather Jr., Manny Pacquiao, Vasily Lomachenko, Terence Crawford.
Nobody develops fighters better than Top Rank.
Nobody grooms fighters better than Top Rank to ensure that there's some actual steak with that sizzle. There's actually substance. You want to talk about fighters being held back? You want to talk about that? How come Danny Garcia was offered the Pacquiao fight years ago, back when Manny Pacquiao was still with Top Rank? Danny was still is with the PBC. How come Danny was offered that fight years ago, but he didn't take it? 5 years ago, in July of 2016, news broke that Danny Garcia was offered a multi-million-dollar fight with none other than the fighting senator himself, Manny Pacquiao. And in so many words, they turned it down.
That would have been the biggest fight of Danny's career.
Bigger than a Thurman fight, bigger than a Porter fight, bigger than a Spence fight. It would have quite literally been the career highlight of Danny Garcia's entire boxing career. And he turned it down. I guess he had better stuff to do.
They offered Adrian Broner a Pacquiao fight right around the same time.
There was back and forth between Adrian Broner, Top Rank, Bob Arum, Team Pacquiao to do a fight as far back as 2015. And in so many words, Adrian Broner walked away from the fight because he wanted $10 million. He was insulted that the people over there at Top Rank wouldn't offer him $10 million up front to do a Pacquiao fight. That was back in 2015. You fast forward, Adrian ends up having the Pacquiao fight he does, but his guaranteed purse wasn't $10 million. It was $2.5 million. So this is a fight that Adrian could have had much sooner.
He got $2.5 million with incentives when he finally did fight Manny.
Well, yeah, he ended up fighting Manny in January of 2019, but he could have had that same fight with that same Manny Pacquiao 4 years prior in 2015 when he was made an offer to fight Manny Pacquiao. So as it stands, he didn't get the $10 million he was griping about in 2015.
And who do you think was responsible for that?
Who do you think Adrian Broner's getting advice from? I'd wager it's the same guy that Danny Gersha is getting advice from when he rejected Manny Pacquiao's offer.
And how is Adrian Broner doing these days?
I don't know how to do this, but I can show
I
you.
thought you didn't have any financial statements.
Who said what?
That's what it says in here.
I don't have no
any.
money. I get sent money and I spend it. I gotta spend it on bills.
Oh, I see. Okay.
I gotta spend it on bills.
That was Adrian Broner over a year ago crying broke in a court of law.
Same Broner that said he wouldn't fight Manny for anything less than $10 million?
But ended up fighting him anyway under Al Haymon's instructions, under circumstances dictated by Al Haymon. Al Haymon, who he messaged and said, Al, on some real shit, I know what I'm going through, but at this point you're handling me like I hit licks for you, sending me $1,000, $1,500 a day. If I want to spend $1 million, I should be able to because I made it. I know what I owe and I told you to pay it and get me some more fights so I can make money. You got me ready to go get 100, 200 pounds of weed, bruh. On God, I will never say F you, but stop playing games with my motherfucking money. Give me all my money. Stop playing with me, bro, on God. And stop calling me. I ain't trying to talk to you. You can't finesse or out-talk me, talk me out this shit. This message was for Al Haymon. Yet I don't see anybody accusing Al Haymon of holding Adrian Broner back, having held him back from having that Pacquiao fight years ago when it was first offered to him, making him wait 3-4 years to have it just so that he doesn't give the guy all his money.
Enough isn't being made of this.
As I listened to the Porterway podcast, that particular panelist who says he felt Bob Arum held Terence Crawford back, I can't help but wonder if he knows about this situation between Al Haymon and Adrian Broner, and, what does he think about that? Because near as I can tell, Bob Arum and Top Rank have groomed some of the sport's brightest stars to where those guys, they can go into business for themselves with their talents, the talent they developed at Top Rank. How many Oscar De La Hoyas has Al Haymon groomed? How many Miguel Cottos? How many Manny Pacquiaos? How many Floyd Mayweather Jr.'s? Because as we all know, Floyd Mayweather Jr. started out as a Top Rank fighter, and he became the fighter that he became at Top Rank until he outgrew the promotional outfit. Better still, if Al Haymon is some kind of wizard, Bob Arum is some kind of villain, hey, when's this wizard gonna come up with another Floyd Mayweather Jr.? All his fighters seem to do is coattail the success of other fighters that were groomed by other outfits. Fighters like Canelo Alvarez.
How many of Al's boys got his name in their mouth?
In a nutshell, I don't agree with the idea that Bob Arum and Top Rank held Terence Crawford back when they're the ones who helped Terence Crawford get to where he is today. And even if today it's time for a change and he wants to change his decorum, he wants to do things a little bit differently moving forward. Even if that's the case, Bob Arum and Top Rank didn't hold him back. They got him to where he is today.
He developed under them.
The same way that many great fighters were groomed and developed under the Top Rank banner. Now Bob, Uncle Bob, he still thinks that the most lucrative option for Terence Crawford moving forward lies with Top Rank. He thinks that the most lucrative offer for him right now is Josh Taylor. He says,
I think it's more lucrative because of the UK element. You have to understand, Taylor is huge in the UK. So is Crawford. We can do 70,000 seats and do probably 1.5 million, 2 million pay-per-view buys. And put it an hour where we can still do pay-per-view over here in the United States. So I haven't penciled it out completely, but I think the most lucrative fight for Terence would be Josh Taylor. The fight I would like to see is Terence and Josh Taylor. Two of the fighters, one currently and one previously, who were undisputed in their weight class.
I think that old Bob, Uncle Bob, is overselling Josh Taylor here a bit. I mean, I love Josh Taylor. I love the Tartan Tornado, don't get me wrong. But I don't know about him being a huge draw in the United Kingdom. I don't know about that.
1 million pay-per-view buys.
1.5 million to 2 million pay-per-view buys transatlantically. Yeah, I think that Bob's overselling Josh's celebrity a little bit.
Yeah.
A little smidge. However, I don't think he's completely off base. A Josh Taylor fight might be the most lucrative option for Terence at this time because, if he were lucky enough to get the Errol Spence Jr. fight, Errol's asserting his A-side status over Terence. Terence would approach that fight as the B-side fighter, whereas with Josh, he would approach that fight as the A-side fighter, the champion.
And Josh would be the challenger.
Bob's not completely off base when he talks about a foreign arm of revenue to capitalize on. It is true that the fight fans over there in the United Kingdom, Scotland in particular, they'd be very much interested in that fight, pay cash money to see it. I guess the reason I don't think Bob's completely off base is because we don't know that Errol Spence Jr. is ever going to fight Terence Crawford. He doesn't seem any more enthusiastic about that fight now that Terence is a network and promotional free agent. He doesn't seem any more enthusiastic about that fight now than he has in the past.
Is he really an option for Terence?
I just don't know now that Terence Crawford isn't with Toprank anymore. The situation has changed, but we don't know what that's going to mean to Errol Spence Jr. We don't know.
I don't know if Errol's ever going to fight him.
And if he doesn't, what does that leave Terence Crawford with? An active Keith Thurman that still hasn't had a tune-up fight in the last 2 years? Danny Garcia, he left the weight class. Reigning WBA champion Yordenis Ugas very recently expressed an interest, but he's all tied up with that four-man tournament. And his interest seems limited to Terence Crawford crossing over to the PBC side of things.
Well, so you're saying you won't fight him unless he signs to the PBC?
When you think about all of this stuff and how it might break down, Josh Taylor might actually be his most lucrative option, or at least one among them. A realistic one, but we'll see what happens.